Come on, I'm ready?
You're ready.
You don't need to record. Okay. Anyways, first of all, thank you, Milka Kielsen, for coordinating this entire evening from A to Z. We really appreciate it. Along as well, who's not here tonight, with Esther Novak from her office, who Baruch Hashem is out on maternity leave, but this really was her brainchild, and we thank Esther as well. So thank you, Esther. Tell her we gave a clap, even though she's not here. Esther's proud mother. I'm not really speaking, so I'm really going to sit down in a few seconds. I first of all want to apologize to the attendees. I know some are still parking, and those that are here. And to the presenters, my brother is making a bar mitzvah in Lakewood tonight, so I do have to go there. So I'm not going to be hanging around. It's not because I don't have patience to sit through these speeches. The only thing I will say is that there's a lot of enthusiasm and already requests now, we didn't even start yet, for the recording. Because I know that I myself, along with a wife that works, and both of us working, and Baruch Hashem, we're trying to make the right financial decisions. And we think ahead. Some are older, some are younger. And I think that the panelists tonight, each in their own right, and Michael will talk more about them as they're introduced, have a wealth of knowledge, so much valuable information that can be shared with everyone here in the various stages of whatever it is that they're looking for, whether it's an investment, whether it's trying to manage a credit card or a budget, or just make the next right business decision. And so it's exciting because I think there's so much to be learned from and so much more that can happen as a result from tonight. We asked Mr. Morris Maish Smith to give a brief introduction to the panelists, and we certainly at Achiezer, and certainly in the community, his name is so well known to us. He's somebody who has probably more than 30 years of financial experience, besides for the fact that many of you interact with him through his work at Darkei Torah. He's someone that has so much knowledge to share, and although he cannot stay for the entire evening, we asked him to give us a few minutes of his time. I will tell you that whether it's in Eretz Yisrael or America or some other part of the country, his time is constantly sought after. So I wanted to publicly thank him for making the time to be here. And with no further ado, I'm going to sit down and ask Mr. Smith to introduce the evening.
Thank you very much. First of all, it's really an honor to be here tonight. I think this was a terrific idea. When I was approached about being the event chairman, I thought that was basically a slam dunk. This is a terrific panel and a terrific way of trying to introduce to our community some really basic financial planning type of issues that I think almost everybody should be exposed to, and hopefully the recordings will get circulated, and this is hopefully the first of many programs. As I think, I don't know, as Baruch Bear may have mentioned before, if we would have offered a barbecue tonight, they'd be out the door. If it was a siyum, we should have done a short siyum, and we'd have standing room rolling all over the place. Unfortunately, it's not. Unfortunately, that's not what we're doing tonight. We're really here to work on a serious topic, a topic which I don't think is given enough consideration, frankly, for younger couples, middle-aged couples, etc. One of the things that I've spoken about, even including to people within Darkei, and it relates to something that was implemented, I believe, in the 12th grade this past year, is starting to educate 12th graders about basic economics, basic, financial ideas, kind of how do you run your life, what is, income, expenses, etc. It doesn't have to be a full-blown accounting course, but to understand the ABCs of finance. The course I know was very, very successful, and hopefully will be continued going forward. And in general, I would say on an educational basis, it's amazing. You can go through 12 years of experiences in school. I'll talk now about secular education, and quite often a large portion of what you learn secularly for 12 years is not really applied afterwards. I can go here and talk to people about science. Many people don't, and if you go into a different field, you don't take science with you. Geography, history, all these different sort of requirements, and not to take anything away from them, but there is really a weakness, I think, in the general education system, especially as kids are 17, 18 years old, or 11th and 12th grade, men and women, boys and girls. They really should have a basic understanding of financial planning, basics of running a household, budgeting, etc., and what investing is all about. Items that are just really, they're not given those tool sets. So having a program like this list tonight, open to the community. Again, hopefully the first of many, I think is a great idea. Now, I work, one of the reasons I have to leave early tonight, literally, is I do work on the Achiezer financial management program, and I have a meeting tonight with one of our clients, which is the best reason to be leaving, I think, of all. And but the truth is, so just from the presenters, I know 2 of the 4 presenters a little bit personally. I know Igor, having worked with him on one case before, he was very helpful. But Stacy, I will speak for directly. Stacy Zrin is an unbelievable financial budgeter, and I awe when I sit with her and watch her how she works with families. She's unbelievable. You should really pay attention to her because she really understands how you're supposed. No, I am not exaggerating. She deserves all the accolades that I give her. Back to Igor for 1 second. Igor's strength is if you have certain issues, for example, you may have to negotiate something with the IRS or some kind of these things that are legal headaches, credit card companies. Igor is a great resource to turn to. I know he's been very helpful to Achiezer over the years, and somebody should also obviously pay a lot of attention to. Sarah Glantz is speaking about wealth management, which is so important for so many people, because many people I run into, people with a low amount of wealth, people with a large amount of wealth, if they haven't gotten it from being in the investment business, they don't know what to do if they have some money. Where do I invest? How do I invest? What makes sense to me over a longer term period? So having somebody talking about financial advisement and financial planning is a great idea. And then Alex Pfeffer, who I don't believe I've met in the past, is talking what it looks like to me about sort of career planning, etc. And so one of the things I do on the side, a few of you I guess know this, I have what's called a jobs list. And a jobs list is, this started after the meltdown in 2008. I don't have like a company where I could hire a lot of people. So what I decided to do was set up a list. Anybody who has a job, show it to me. I'll circulate for people who are looking for jobs. For good or bad reasons, I have over 1,000 recipients of these jobs today on my list. I'm assuming some of these people have gotten jobs along the way, and I think they're still on the list, however, to help their friends. And thank God I get a good flow. I've gotten very good feedback, and it seems like people only want to join the list and not get off the list. But that gets back to the whole idea of being able to prepare yourself with the skills that you have to be able to go into the workforce and maximize your income. One of the things that Stacy always speaks about is that when you're looking at trying to balance a budget, there's 2 elements. Everyone always tends to focus on the expense side. How much better can I manage my expenses within my home? But there's a second side, and that's the revenue enhancement side. How can I increase my income? Sometimes that's leveraging the skills you have already into doing things on the side where you can, in a sense, supplement your income. And other times, obviously, is where you have to think about where you have skill sets and be able to apply them and have a much greater income than what you're getting right now. So I think it's a fantastic program. I urge all of you to ask questions, be participatory, and I hope you have a wonderful evening tonight, and thank you all for coming. Michael's going to run the program and I think introduce all the speakers.
Okay, good evening. Can I ask the speakers, presenters to come, panelists? Come up. Thank you. Are we at 4?
Yeah, she's coming.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I know there was some math involved this evening, so I just didn't know at what point it was going to happen. All right, good evening. My name is Michael Fragan. I'm in addition to being an Achiezer board member, I'm also the Deputy Mayor of Lawrence. So where we are right now, and I want to welcome you. This is, as Mike said, somebody that anybody who has been in the financial world knows of Morris Smith, knows of Mike Smith, and the fact you actually just listened to somebody who's really a legend in so many different ways. Not just actually in the financial world, but actually a legend when it comes to chesed as well. So it's in many, many different ways. We won't go into it because that would actually take up the whole evening. We really have a fabulous panel, as he said, and I want to thank Achiezer for putting this together. Actually, also Westwood
Realty Associates that sponsor the whole financial management division of Achiezer, which is something that's so important. When Achiezer sees a need in the community, they really go ahead and fill it, and this is something that's very, very critical. So just very, very quickly, nobody came to listen to me, fortunately. I'm going just to go run through the panelists in order. I'm going to introduce them when it's time. Each of them is going to talk for about 15 minutes, and then we'll have some Q&A, which is probably the most important part of the evening. And just moderate that a little bit. So the best thing really would be just let the presenters talk. There'll be ample opportunity for questions afterward. Possibly write whatever you have down on the back of the sheets that you have, and save your questions. So as was mentioned, we have Stacy Zrihan, Igor Meiselman, Alex Pfeffer, and Sarah Glass. Did I get that right? Okay, excellent. Okay, and Stacy is an old friend of mine, and who is involved with the Achiezer Financial Management Program since its inception. She's a longtime resident of the Five Towns for our Rockaway community and loves to organize finances almost as much as she loves to organize houses. So, excellent. You probably wrote that yourself. That's very, very good. Okay, in her spare time, Stacy runs High Lifeline's iShine program in the Five Towns, and that's known as a spare time type of thing for Stacy. Stacy holds a business degree from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, and without further ado, Stacy's Zrihan.
I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. It is a great turnout, especially since there's no meat being offered. One of the great things about working at Achiezer is to have the ability to be part of this financial management program. And I wanted to just boil down what we do to two points. The first being that everybody needs a budget, or at least in our opinion, everybody needs a budget. And the second is that budget should be income driven. Budgeting is a blueprint for finances. You wouldn't build a house without having a blueprint. You wouldn't go buy nails and planks and start building without having a way that you need to do it and a plan for that, and this is the same. And the bigger misconception is that budgeting is for people with difficulties with income. It's not the case. Budgeting is for everybody. Everybody needs a budget. If you're earning at this level, or this level, it doesn't really matter. It's almost sometimes more important if you have additional income to know where it's got to go, and it's, in that sense. It's always good to maintain an active budget throughout your life, but it's most critical at different, crucial times, whether it's at, when you're getting a new job, changing jobs, a new house, a new time in your life. I'm a big fan of starting very young. I think even grade schoolers need to get a small allowance just to get them familiar with the idea of spending on things that are important to them and passing on things that aren't. High schoolers should be able to record a list of expenses and be aware of their spending. A student heading to college, yeshiva, or seminary should have a handle on recurring expenses and know what they need to bring in or to have monthly in order to cover their expenses. And a newly working individual or a newlywed couple, whether they're working or being supported for a limited or extended time, should be able to have a budget that they can update monthly and a way to track their expenses, whether it's using an app like Mint.com or bank statements. I've heard people say, oh, my kid doesn't need an allowance, or we don't need to track, we're really good, we're really careful. I think it's the exact opposite. People who are the most careful reap the greatest benefits from having a budget and from receiving an allowance and from feeling what it feels like to save that money and to put it aside. Giving a child or an adult for that matter open access to spending is setting them up for a financial failure because they never feel that feeling of what it's like to save and put money aside. Having money in the bank is important for peace of mind. You need money for an emergency fund, should be 7 to 8 months of expenses in case of any type of an emergency. You want to put away savings for retirement and for simchas or any unexpected events. And as far as I'm concerned, the only way to do that is to have a budget, and the earlier you do it, the more you're able to plan. The second point is that these budgets should be not expense-driven, but income-driven. The mistake that people often make is they sit down and say, well, I need to pay this much for my mortgage, and this much for my car, and this much for each of the other expenses, and then at the end they say, okay, well, I only have this much left, so I guess that's my savings, or I only have this much left, or I don't have any left, so I'll just put the balance on a credit card. And really, it has to work backwards. You need to begin with disposable income. The first and most important thing to remove is Meiser, and unfortunately, one one thing that I have encountered over the years that I'm doing this is that there have been very few families that I've worked with who are putting away the 10%. So it's got to start early on where you take that off the top, and then to sit down and say, what are our savings goals? What do we need to save for? Are we going to want to make bar mitzvahs? Are we going to want to make weddings? Do we want to have money for retirement? At what age do we want to retire? And to be able to sit down and start putting money aside as early as possible for those expenses. So that's important. The most important thing that, or one of the important things that we've encountered is that a lot of people are hesitant to come in and meet with an advisor, which we understand it's a sensitive topic. It's not something that everyone's comfortable with, but there's no shame to coming in. If you have, everyone needs help with something. We have people who are not great with their kids and they need advice from a friend or a buddy to help them with that, or whether it's eating or exercising. We all seek advice from professionals, in different fields. This is no different. Ways to know if you need a buddy to help you with finances. If you've got credit card debt, that's probably a good red flag. If you have that, you probably need to do this exercise with somebody. You're probably not someone to whom it comes naturally to do it on your own. If you're using your savings, wedding money, or money that's been put away for something for month-to-month expenses, that's a good time to sit down with somebody else and get an outside view. It doesn't have to be Achiezer. It can be a family friend. It can be a family member, anyone that you're comfortable with. Or if you're up at night worrying about money, whether or not you don't have, that's also another time to bounce it off somebody else and see how you do. I always laugh. I once, when I was working in someone's house and I was organizing their kitchen, and the woman said to me, she was watching, she said, I have to tell you, I feel so embarrassed that I'm paying you to organize my kitchen. And I said, I would tell you that I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'm about to go pay someone to tell me to eat egg white omelets. So we all have that. We all have areas that are not our forte. If you know that you're great at this, then good for you, and great, you can come on in and help other people with it or your family, friends. But if you see that it's not something that's coming naturally to you, that's the time to reach out. In the packet, you have a sample budget that we use. Different people's budgets look different, and we cross out items. A couple that's starting out probably has 4 or 5 of those expenses. People who have, or are older or have more needs for savings may have other things on there that are not included. But it's a good starting point, and we're here. And if there's anyone who is interested in meeting with an advisor, be it me or anyone else, please be in touch with Elisa Wartowski, and we'll answer questions at the end.
Okay, thank you, Stacy. I always like it when the presenter goes way under their budget with time. Wow. Okay, our second panelist is Igor Weiselman, managing partner of the IM Law Group. The truth is, everybody really has these bios in front of them, correct? So I don't actually have to read everything that's in there. Igor is going to tell us about the credit cards, the good, bad, the ugly, and this is actually one I'm particularly interested in.
Yeah, I'm going to try to stick to Stacy's timeline so we can have room for questions, and we'll start a little late. So since the topic was given to me, good, bad, and ugly, I'm going to try to kind of stick by categories. I wish I could tell you I have a lot to say about good. I have a little bit. And then we'll dive into bad and ugly and hopefully some resolutions. So I don't think, a few introductory points. I don't think credit cards are inherently evil, but they do test a person in their sphere of personal finances. So I'm going to sprinkle examples during the presentation just to make as real as I can for you what it's like, my day looks like. Louder? If you feel I'm speaking about you, I'm describing you, I'm not. I'm speaking about a person sitting next to you. I'm kidding. So first of all, my view is credit cards don't discriminate. I call them equal opportunity victimizers. They will solicit as much as they can out of you to get you to use it because they'll tell you about the good qualities that they offer, miles, points. For some people, it's a essentially emergency loan with a high interest rate. But the reality is that eventually the bill arrives with a grace period and you have to pay it. And that's when the bad part starts coming in. Credit cards tend to charge very high interest rates, far in excess of what most people think about until they actually don't make a full payment on their balance. A lot of credit cards can be as high as 24%, which means that when people start paying minimum or slightly above minimum, the interest is going to continue overshadowing the payments that you're making, and you kind of find yourself in this free fall. I think I could pay this off somehow one day, but that day could be 15, 20 years away. So I'll give you an example. Somebody will fall into the bad category. Let's say a family will come. They're already anywhere in the category of $10,000 to $50,000 in credit card debt. They have 3 to 5 kids. They're in their mid-30s, professionals. They're working. Maybe.
Just bring the microphone. Thank you.
If you mean.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I'm going to go off now.
I'm stopping the clock, don't worry.
That's not good.
You can have all Stacy's extra time.
I'm
Too
donating
kind.
my minutes.
Too kind. That means I'm overspending. Stacy will give me a hard time.
2 cents a minute.
Okay, go ahead.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you.
So much.
You're welcome.
So again, scenario would be a couple, 3 to 5 kids, $10,000 to $50,000 in debt. They're usually by that point in their 30s, early 40s. They work. Maybe one spouse is part-time, but the issue is that their kids are getting older. They have tuitions. They're planning simchas, bar mitzvahs, whatever it may be, and they find themselves that they simply can't manage this debt anymore. And given the interest rates and penalties, the amount just continues growing, and they just find themselves in a place where, how will I ever manage this debt? How am I ever going to pay it off? And that's usually why they wind up coming in, either to speak to somebody like Stacy and get budgeting advice to figure out how to kind of rein in these problems, or eventually they have to discuss with someone like me potential legal resolutions to these types of problems. Okay, a little bit of ugly. I hope it won't get too depressing. Okay, so according to Federal Reserve statistics for 2017, credit cards have now joined 2 other categories of being over $1 trillion in debt for American consumers: student loans and car loans. So today, America is over $1 trillion in credit card debt. According to Federal Reserve, that puts us at about $16,000 per adult in the United States. And so again, the patterns continue. People have to manage these enormous interest rates and penalties and fees. They can't do it. And eventually what winds up happening, and a lot of people don't know this, but your credit score is not only affected by whether you pay on time, it also is affected by how much debt you carry on those credit cards. So let's make an easy example. If you have a credit card that has a $10,000 limit, if you're spending more than 20% of your available credit, so that means more than $2,000, you're actually negatively impacting your score. So you could charge the card $5,000 every month, pay it in full every month, and your score will actually decline. It's not going to plummet, it's not bankruptcy, but it will actually have negative impact. And so the scenarios that I encounter in my office is when families as units grow in these debt amounts, $40,000, $50,000, a lot of times it's because the available balance that they have, they are well in excess of 20%. And so they find that their lease is up, and now they need to get a car, and they go to get approved, and they're told they're declined. What do you mean? I pay on time every month. Well, your problem is that your score already dropped under 700. Why is that? Because you have more than 20% use of your credit. And that's when kind of people go into emergency mode, and unfortunately there's not a quick fix, because by that point most people income is less than their expenses, and they will struggle figuring out how they're going to manage, getting the next car or refinancing their house or even getting a mortgage. Fast forward, let's take that family now into their 40s, early 50s. Maybe they have 4 to 7 kids. In difficult scenarios, I see people having anywhere between $30,000 to $80,000 in credit card debt. There are people who are even outside of those numbers. I've had clients with well over $100,000 in credit card debts. And I ask, how did this happen? Life is busy, and between davening, learning, and working, I just swipe the card. There is a certain cognitive dissonance that happens for people when you use a credit card. That it's not as real as when you have to take cash out of your wallet and notice that it's getting less and less. And so, unfortunately, the pattern continues, and at least according to Federal Reserve, it's only heading in a bad direction. Okay, so a few concluding remarks. What kind of solutions do I discuss with my clients? And obviously I want to propose tonight, and when there's room for Q&A, obviously you could ask more questions. So first I'm going to just echo again what Stacy said. Budget is foundation of everything to me in these topics. The first question I ask during the consultation is, do you have a budget? Most of the time the answer is no. And we would like to have one. And it's unfortunate that that mentality starts catching up when people experience pressure. It would be great to kind of stay ahead and plan so that the situation doesn't happen, but such is the reality. So budgeting is tremendously important. Just to visualize the numbers on a page has, I think, an enormous psychological effect on the person. When you see, this is what I take home, and this is what I'm spending, and then you realize there's no way that I can keep this up for the next 20 years. It's just there's certain reality that kicks in that could allow a person to, reverse course and actually hopefully succeed in what they're trying to do. Okay, I have a specific advice for married couples. So if you're not married, don't be offended. It's super important to be on the same page. This is a topic that I think is impossible. I was going to say nearly impossible. I think it's impossible to succeed in budgeting and planning overall future finances for a family if the couple is not on the same page. Many times when I'm meeting with the clients, one person says, I'm super excited about budgeting, I met with Achiezer, and I'm ready to take this on, and then my spouse walks in with a Starbucks coffee, and I'm going nuts. And that's a reflection of not being a team. And so I wanted to just throw out that specific item for couples to be mindful that if one of you feels excited and the other one is like, I'm not sure yet, I'm too busy, I don't know, I can tell you that you definitely should take time to pause and kind of sit down together as a team and say, okay, either we do it together or the chances of success are slim to none. So I definitely encourage it should be a team exercise, team building exercise. Okay, and I guess finally, I do want to say that there's many creative approaches to budgeting, to planning finances, and also to deal with situations if you're already facing challenges like credit cards or any other type of consumer debt. There's definitely tons of literature. I personally have to be a big fan of Dave Ramsey. Not all his views may be perfectly aligned with what you may think, but there's definitely a number of people, certainly in the United States, who are recognized as have proven track records of helping people succeed in these arenas, and you definitely can explore it. I think that I'll end with this. I think the bottom line is going to be that I didn't want to veer too much into like a religious angle, but in Mesilas Yesharim, in Path of Just, the first sentence says, if you want to succeed in life, you have to define exactly what you're going for. So this is not, I don't think this is any different. When I ask clients, what exactly do you want to accomplish, they actually don't have answers. Where would you like to see your life in 5 years? What do you want to do in 10 years? Have you set up a separate budget for your daughter's bas mitzvah? Have you planned for seminary for your child? No. How are you planning to pull this off? Looking at these numbers, I have no idea. Well, maybe it's time to sit down and start defining what you're going to do. Maybe you'll put $50 away every month, and you'll say that money doesn't exist. It's money for my child for X event. But people don't do it, and they kind of crash into reality. And the only way to do that is to really sit down and define what goals you want to achieve, short term and long term, and if you have a spouse, to do it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Igor. That was not quite as ugly as I had expected, but somewhat ugly. And we didn't get to any of the points issues because, usually when I hear about credit cards, that's all anybody wants to talk about these days. So maybe we'll save that for questions. Then we're going to pivot a little bit to Alex Pfeffer, Human Resources Logistics Consultant at Castle Point Consulting, talking about career paths, which obviously dovetails very significantly with financial management.
Thank you. All right, how's everyone doing? Good. So far, I'm very impressed.
Crowd's
so.
warmed up already.
Yeah, they're warmed up. Great.
And the good news, you have plenty of time for the other people.
Keep it short. Okay, so as a big assumption, we're going to start with that you are on the right career path, which not everyone is. And if you are unsure, I do career counseling for Achiezer. So call in, and my pleasure to sit down with you for an hour. But if you are on the right career path for your personality type, for your interests and your goals, as we discussed, your earning goals 4 or 5 years, 10 years from now, how do you stay on that path, and how do you keep it moving? You don't stagnate. How do you continue to grow, hit your milestones, and get the raises that you deserve, and pay those bills? So there's a sheet in your handouts. It's a summary sheet of what we're going to discuss, so you can have that out. First of all, do a great job. Something we say in the workplace a lot: safety, quality, quantity. If you work out in the field, safety obviously means safety. Being safe with power tools, following OSHA, etc. But for the rest of you that have office jobs, safety means being professional, being a team player, soft skills, getting along with everybody, not causing problems in the office, and being a good communicator. After that, we focus on quality. Quality, quality, quality. Quality as defined by your supervisor. So find out what he thinks is good enough, meet that, or go above and beyond. In all things that you do, exceed your supervisor's expectations. Lastly, once you have the quality and you're being a team player and you're getting along with everybody, then comes quantity. Kind of like when you're preparing for the marathon right now on those bicycles that everyone's running around in. You get faster over time. So once you're doing things right, you're going to see it gets easier, and you're going to speed up, and you're going to achieve more in the week. So that's the first step to being on the right path, is do an excellent job, safety, quality, and quantity. Number 2, once you've done that, going above and beyond. This is really very simple. Do everything in your power to make your supervisor's life as easy as possible. It could be small things, it could be big things. It could be running to the post office to drop off the post for him. It could be reviewing a contract to see for typos. Normally what I tell my employees is try to figure out what his weaknesses are. What does he hate doing? What does he always procrastinate on, leave to the last minute when it has to be in? That's the stuff. If you're good at it and you enjoy it, just say, hey, do you mind? I don't mind reviewing that for you. I'll be helpful in that. And every time you do that, you're making yourself more and more valuable to him. And when it comes to the annual review, and his supervisor asks him, well, what about Yankel here? He's like, oh, I can't live without him. You figure out what he needs to get and make sure he gets it. You need to get all the leverage you can, become completely irreplaceable, and that comes from watching and listening to your supervisor, see what he doesn't want to do, and then offer to help, as long as you can get it done within the time limits. Okay, so we've got safety, quality, quantity. We're going above and beyond. And number 3, getting into the managerial mindset. Okay, we're all, regular employees to start with, but eventually we get to a position where we're going to become supervisors, take a leadership role, and grow within the company. And we start by identifying ways to save the company time, money, and effort. When we talk up the ladder to our supervisor and his supervisor and his, it's always about increasing revenue and decreasing expenses. When we talk to people below us in the ladder, our people that we supervise, we always talk to them in their short-term and long-term goals. And that's something you should also remember. But as far as the management mindset, time, money, and effort, it could be something as simple as, we're still subscribing to Constant Contact and we don't use it anymore. Why don't we save the extra $70 a month? And what do? He says, yeah, sure, sounds like a good idea. And then you offer to take care of it. Don't even make it as easy as you can for your supervisor. Little things, big things. If you cut an hour off his week by taking over one of his responsibilities, like reviewing those typos, mark that down. We're going to come to that soon. But everything you can do to save the company time, money, and effort, bring it to your supervisor, measure what the result was, and then you're going to take a note for that. Again, it also shows that you have leadership potential, that you understand the greater mission of the company, the big picture, and that will once again set you apart from the rest of the employees. Number 4. So, you're doing everything great, you're going above and beyond, and you're showing leadership ability. The 4th one is, now that you've sped up and you're doing a great job, you want to grow your skill set and you want to grow your responsibilities. It's 2 different things, but they're very similar. Grow your skill set means look for things that maybe in the office no one enjoys doing, or I recently had a client when nobody really knew Excel in the office. So I went around the office and said, which one of you want to watch some YouTube videos at night and get better at Excel? And so you'll be the go-to person in the office when anyone has a question of what to do. Be that person. It's going to make it much harder to replace you. And the more leverage you have, the more money you can make. So find out what are the shortages and needs in the office skill-wise, and then develop those skills, fill that need. As far as responsibilities go, as I said, when you're doing safety, quality, quantity, you're going to get faster, and then you're going to have more time during the week. Don't take on more than you can handle. Don't work 90-hour weeks. Work-life balance is very, very important. But do take on those extra responsibilities. It is important, and there's lots of opportunities. If no one's throwing any your way, look for them. They're out there. I've had a lot of employees say, my manager's never retiring, I've got nowhere to grow to. And there are ways growing within your job by looking and seeing what ways you can save time, money, effort, and what responsibilities you take on. Okay, so that's it, 1 through 4. If you're doing all of that, you're going to be a star employee, valued by your supervisor, respected by the team, growing in your role, and frankly, you deserve a raise. All the positive feedback and recognition in the world doesn't change the fact that New York is an expensive city to live in. I wasn't born here, I chose this life. Okay, so what do you do? How do you get that raise? How do you get those promotions and stay on track and pave your career path forward? The first thing you do is you have to record your achievements. Even in the most corporate of America, no one is going to do it for you. You have to do it yourself. It's very, very simple. A Word document on your desktop, and it just says achievements. And you click on it every time someone says you did a good job. Every time you save the company time, money, and effort by cutting that constant contact. Every time you take a responsibility from your supervisor that now is consistently yours, and you're doing a good job on it, quality-wise, quantity-wise. You're not just you did it once, but you're actually taking over that responsibility. Put it on the achievement sheet. And be as specific as possible. Use as much metrics as possible, and when you can, put it in a dollar amount. So time is also money. So anytime you save employees' hours, you can say, I cut off 80 hours of that guy's job. He didn't have to do any more by implementing this new system, such and such. Okay? So you want to record it all. Once you have it all in place, 2 months before your annual review, you're going to send that as an email to your supervisor and HR saying, I look forward to discussing my annual review in 2 months. Here is a list of some of my achievements from the year, and I want you to take these into account when you consider my adjusted compensation. You can also take this opportunity, and this is also key, ask in that email, if there's anything else that you feel I should improve in the next 2 months before my annual review, let me know. So again, you've given them the opportunity to give you feedback, and that will also shoot them down when they say, oh, well, this, and this. Oh, why didn't you tell me 2 months ago? All right, number 6, do your research. Know what you are worth. The information is out there. It's available for all of you. You can ask your co-workers. It's not the best thing to do, and it normally leads to jealousy to some form or another. Once they've told you, you kind of feel a need to tell them, and then one of you's making more. So the reality is you have on the paper there's a bunch of websites. The government they survey hundreds of thousands of people, and I often will sit with an employee and he'll say, oh, I need to make more money, and I'll say to him, hey, what do you currently make? And he'll tell me, and then we'll go on the website in front of him, I've got nothing to hide, and I'll pull up what do the people in your job make nationally. What are the top 10% making? What are the bottom? Where are you in the league? And often they find they're in the top 10% earners. They're either being overpaid or they're close to. And once they understand that, then I say, okay, but you can still earn a raise by taking on more responsibilities, growing your skill set, or transitioning into it in a different role in the company. So do your research. It's very simple. Look at the places on the sheet. You can also call recruiters. If you're making over 70,000 or so, there are recruiters to deal with that. When you're earning less, there aren't really so many recruiters. But you can ask them, hey, what do people currently get paid in New York in this area with this many years experience, this education, and this added value? Okay. Number 7, the annual review. Some of you are thinking, oh, we don't have an annual review. Well, if you don't have a formal annual review in your company, then you create your own. 12 months after you started, and that date every year is your personal annual review. And again, 2 months before that, you're going to send that email to your supervisor and HR saying, hey, 2 months from now is my annual anniversary at the company, and I look forward to discussing an adjustment to my salary and how I will further grow with the company, etc., etc. And it's not a long email, it's not complicated. You have your achievements on your desktop. Just cut and paste it, little header, little footer, and that's it. So you're going to prepare for the annual review by sending that email. And then you are going to start constructing your case. Think, what were the most important things you achieved there? Where do you want to grow? Is there a certain skill set that you want to send you for training, certain certification? Do you want to get more into software versus hardware? Do you want to be more in a managerial role? Do you want to change department? Whatever it is, but make your case of how you will add value and how you'll be able to train in your replacement or take certain responsibilities with you. Avoid giving emotional reasons. Avoid talking about how you need the money now because your husband lost his job. It's not a communist state. Okay. Number 8, the annual review. The annual review. Instead of jumping straight into the numbers, start the conversation by asking about your job performance. How have you done? Ask them. And if you've been doing everything the first 4 like we discussed, it should go, you've really improved. We've all noticed the last 6 months you've stepped up and everyone's very impressed. And we don't know what happened, who you spoke to, but we're really impressed. Use the word salary adjustment, not a raise. Salary adjustment infers that it wasn't correct prior to now. And, I've taken on added responsibilities. I've sped up. My quality's there. My supervisor praised me out the door. I think it's time we talk about a salary adjustment. So it does take some of the edge off, and it doesn't come across like you're asking for anything extra. So you can ask questions like, how can I improve? But essentially, they're either going to give you 1 or 2 answers. Yes, we've talked about it. We've considered that this is what we want to offer you. And then you don't have to take it. You can explain why you think it's not enough. Or they'll say no. The yes and the negotiating, that's up to you and how well you've prepared and formed your argument. And again, if it's not good enough, we'll come back to number 10. So number 9, we're nearly there, folks. Handling a possible no. Whatever you do. Okay, just so you all know, I'm an HR consultant, so I work for a lot of different companies. I'm on the other side of the desk. My job is to evaluate what we have to pay this employee and how much they really deserve. I gave a raise yesterday, I gave a raise this morning to 2 different employees based on how much they've grown in the last 6 months and how I'm throwing responsibility to them, and they've handled it well for 3 months. We do a 3-month trial with big responsibilities. And so I know how the conversation normally goes, and sometimes there is a no. But if you threaten to quit, it sours the water. If you start with the threats and get aggressive, it really shuts down communication. What you want to do is show that you're a long-term investment, that I'm somebody who's going to be with the company a long time from now. I'm really happy to train in the new guys and help with this and that. Show that you're committed, and that commitment normally convinces much more than threats. I've seen them both, and normally when you leave the room, it's not nice when you threaten. So investment, and again, companies always invest in people they think will stay another 3-5 years. Learn exactly, if they do tell you no and it's outside of their control, it may be true, it may not be, depends on your manager and CEO, etc. But ask why, what's going on. It could be a bad quarter, industry, the company's not doing well, we're downsizing, there hasn't been the work we expected. We can't afford it, and it may be time to start looking for a new job if you think it's not true. You can ask, okay, in that case, if not today, can we have this conversation again in 3 months? Can we have this conversation again in 6 months? And see if you can get a follow-up date, which sometimes will work. Okay, lastly, number 10. Number 10, next steps. So you had the annual review, you became a fantastic employee, you went through the process, you prepared, you made your case, it was a good case, and now comes the annual review. And you've had it, what happens next? You heard a no, let's say. If you heard a yes and everything's great, wonderful. You don't have to go to number 10. But let's say it wasn't great. So don't beat yourself up. If things don't go smoothly as planned, it could be 1 or 2 things. Either you really aren't as good as you thought you were. That happens. Sometimes employees come to me and they at the annual review and they really think they're phenomenal. I have my employees always write their own annual review, kind of like this. I make it mandatory for them to do a personal review. So it helps that case and helps me persuade the CEO to give them more money. But sometimes they're very delusional about how well they did. They like to underplay the mistakes, so they don't realize where the quality and the quantity is lacking. So sometimes you'll find out in the annual review you really aren't as great as you think, even though you tried. But if you are as good as you think, and they've said no because the industry is doing terribly right now, and there's no raises going around, you have a couple of options. Number 1 is request a slow transition into more lucrative role. Say, okay, I understand this role, I'm at the peak, I'm in the top 5% earners, and there's no way you can give me more money without giving the other guys more. So what about transitioning me into a manager role? I'll do half a day a week, and I'll follow what's his name, and he'll teach me what I have to learn. And 6 months from now, I'll transition to that role, and I'm more than happy to train in my replacement. I'll even help you hire them. I'll sit through the interviews, and that's one option, transitioning into a more lucrative role. And you have to prove that you can be more valuable in that role, especially if you're really great at your job. They do not want a switch around. And then number 2 is if there's no money, you can ask for something else. Lots of options out there. You can ask for an extra week of vacation. You can ask for a one-time bonus. You can ask to work from home every other Friday. You can ask for a costly training or certification. But there's ways to go about that. Okay, and lastly, it might be time to update your resume. Again, it's always better to be in a growing company that's doing well, and when there's a more positive attitude and there's opportunities for growth, etc., etc. And that's that. Thank you for your time. Enjoy.
I thought we lost you, but thank you. Our ultimate speaker is Sarah Glass, and a popular writer from Mishpacha. I've read quite a few of her columns, and it's not just about, revenue doesn't come about just through career, but it also comes about through investing, so very important piece of the financial puzzle.
Hi, okay, I'm Sarah Glass. I have a topic that I could spend hours and hours on. I have a good 15 minutes. I don't know what you guys know, so I'm just going to go over the basics. I'm going to try to hit different points that are relevant to different ages and whatnot. Okay, so when I talk about investing, I'm going to be talking about investing in the stock market, investing in stocks and bonds. So what I found from speaking to people, speaking to clients, is that regardless of age, regardless of income, regardless of job, the idea of investing and what's involved is murky in people's mind. So that's why I'm going to kind of talk about all the basics. So just for clarity's sake, what is investing? Investing is putting your money into a venture with the expectation that you're going to make more than what you put in. Okay, so stocks and bonds. What is a stock and what is a bond? Okay, so buying a stock means buying ownership in a company. The way you make money from this is you buy low and you sell high. Or you're buying a stock in a company that gives dividends. So this idea of buying low and selling high. Some people say, I got a stock tip from someone at shul or from a friend, from a girlfriend, so I'm going to go buy stocks. So let me just say buyer beware. This idea, it's called timing the market, buying low and selling high. And even those from the Harvard Business School don't always get it right. It's a skill, it's almost even a magical skill. It's almost like gambling at times. In fact, I was recently speaking to a professor from California, Dr. Meir Statman. He's one of the founders of behavioral finance. I wrote a piece on behavioral finance for Mishpacha magazine. And I asked him the idea of timing the market. He said, look, Mrs. Glass, you have to understand. Let me give you an analogy of when it comes to timing the market. He said, imagine an individual investor is a tennis player, okay? They're on the tennis court, and between them and their opponent is a big screen. Okay, so the individual investor is getting ready to play the tennis game, the screen drops, and these are his exact words. Imagine on the other side was the Williams sisters, Venus and Serena. They're 7 feet tall. The individual investor, let's say like me, is going to get wiped out in a second. People don't understand what they're up against when it comes to timing the market and buying low and selling high. Nowadays, a lot of trades are done by computers and algorithms. Okay, so that's just a buyer beware idea. So let's go on to bonds. Bonds is you are loaning your money to a U.S. corporation, to the U.S. government, to a municipality. They're going to give you periodic interest payments, and at the end of the term of the bond, they're going to give you back your principal. Bonds tend to be more conservative. Why? Because the price of bonds are not as volatile as stocks. Okay. There's also one more thing. Okay? This is more relevant to the individual investor, called mutual funds. Mutual funds are a basket of stocks, tens, maybe 100 stocks, a basket of bonds, usually hundreds of bonds, or a basket of stocks and bonds. It's going to be actively managed by a money manager, professional at an investment company, and he knows, what to put in, what to take out. Mutual funds tend to have themes. You have global allocation, which is the investments in the mutual fund, globally allocated. There's international investments in it. There's bond funds. There are S&P 500 index funds. There's healthcare. There's technology. There's tons and tons of different types of mutual funds to choose from. Okay, so that is the very basic of bonds, stocks, and mutual funds. So why should you invest? Compound interest and the power of market returns. Okay, compound interest, let's say you put your money into a mutual fund, and that mutual fund gives you dividends. Okay, so you put $1,000 in, you get $20 in dividends, and let's say those dividends are being reinvested, and let's say you make $20 off that $1,000. So now you have invested $1,020, and that's growing. Power of market returns. You can put your money into a bank account and make, 0.5%, or if someone had been invested in the S&P 500 since January 1st, they would be up 8%. Okay, so the power of market returns are why people invest in the stock market. Okay, so those are the very basics, really quickly, in a nutshell. Now I want to give you 5 mindsets and tips of a wise investor. Okay, so number 1 is understand your goals of why you're investing and understand the risk that you want to take. So let me tell you a story. Just making sure the person is not in the audience. Okay, I met a few years ago with a young couple. They had, I think, 1 kid at the time. We were doing financial planning, and I was asking them about their assets, what money that they had, and they told me that they had $70,000 set aside. They had worked really hard to accumulate that $70,000. So I asked them, what is this for? And they said it's going to be for a down payment on a house in 2 to 3 years, let's say. So then I said, would you want to invest it? Maybe something conservative? And the man said, actually, I already invested it. And so the curiosity got the best of me. So I asked him, what did he invest in? He proceeded to tell me he has a friend, and his friend has a business. The friend's business is giving short-term loans to bodegas, to convenience stores. Okay, so he wired into his friend's personal bank account $70,000 with no contract. How do you like that one? Okay, so I was like, okay. And the wife was there too, so I'm like, okay. So what's the problem with this? So the good part about it is they had an idea, a goal of what they were going to do with that money. That money was going to be for a down payment on a house. The bad was the risk that he took, okay? So usually your financial goal has to match your risk. If he wants to take that money and invest it, and have it for a down payment, he shouldn't have been taking that risk that he did. He should have probably invested it more conservatively. So tip number one is understand the goal of what you want to do with your money. And number 2, understand the risk that you want to take. Also, some people have certain risk tolerances. I have clients that tell me, here's $50,000, here's $100,000, invest it, and I want to make $1 million next year. Okay, make me a millionaire, Sarah, but I don't want to lose a dime. And they're very serious. So you have to understand is that if you want to make a lot of money, you're going to have to take that risk. If the goal of your money is for a down payment in a house in 2 years, you can't necessarily take that risk, and you're not going to necessarily also get those returns. So you have to be very clear with yourself, the risk that you feel comfortable taking, and also the returns that you expect. You might have to bring yourself down to earth a little bit. Next, tip number 2. Don't have all your eggs in one basket. Diversification. Okay, the way that we diversify is we have stocks and we have bonds in our portfolio. Typically, generally, when stocks go up, bonds go down, and vice versa. That's the very general idea. Another way that we can diversify is by having money in the U.S. market and money in the international market. Why? No one mentioned him yet. I'm gonna mention Trump, because imagine Trump tweeted tonight and he said, "That's it, I became a communist and we're going to war against Britain and France and Alaska." So if that's enough to rock the US market, then if you have some diversification, hopefully the blow to your portfolio will not be as bad. So point number 3, tip number 3 is slow and steady wins the race. The average investor unwisely opens his account statement at the end of the month and he sees, let's say, that his portfolio, the value went down. So he's, oh my gosh, my funds, my stocks are not doing so well, so I need to sell out of all this, and Amazon is doing great right now, so I'm going to invest in Amazon. So what is he in essence doing? He's selling low and buying high. That's the opposite of what you want to be doing. And it's very, very common for people to get into that mindset. So also keep in mind is the S&P 500 is an index of large cap US companies, is that over the past 30 years, on average, the rate of return is 7%. There is 2008. There are times that there is downs, and there's ups and downs, and it goes like this, okay? So you have to understand that there are downs, there are ups, but continually the market will, in general, rise. Number 4, start now. For young people out there that don't have a retirement plan, retirement account, open your retirement account now. If you have kids, help them to open a retirement account now. Start early when it comes for saving for retirement. No time is better than now for starting to invest. The market goes up over time. And number 5, also, if you don't know, retirement account and IRA, there's Roth IRAs, traditional IRAs. Your accountant can give you an idea what's the best one to invest in. Number 5, buyer beware. So chances are you're not the next Warren Buffett. I'm probably not either yet. So if someone approaches you and tells you they can 10 times your money in the next 6 months, run for the hills. There's if something sounds too good to be true, it usually is. People will come to me. I have friends that will come to me. Potential clients will come to me. They'll show me their investment statement, and they'll say, like, how am I doing? How am I invested? What are your thoughts? So sometimes I'll look at it, I'll analyze it. Yeah, it's great. Their investments are fine. Other times it's like, huh? Like, who put you in this? What were you thinking? Like, they don't know. They don't understand why they invested the way they did. A financial advisor put them into something. They don't know why they were put into, these funds, these stocks, these bonds, whatever it is. Or they're 65 years old and they're 80% in stocks, 20% in bonds. Or I had a client that had Puerto Rican bonds. Okay, so you have to understand what you're investing in. You have to understand the expenses. I have seen a number of times people with annuities that shouldn't have annuities. They have annuities because the person who sold it to them made a nice amount of money. I see young people with whole life insurance policies. They tend to be expensive, and there's really no need for them to have it in general terms. You have to ask questions. You have to know the risks. You have to ask the person. If you're speaking to a financial advisor, ask them what your options are. Ask them why. You're allowed to understand. Okay, I'm speaking also to women here. You're allowed to understand, women. You really are. Okay. So my fear is at this point is that you know about investing. You might know why you should invest, but how? How do you invest? You can go it alone. You can call up Vanguard. You can call up Schwab. You can open up your own account, find a 4 or 5-star Morningstar mutual fund, put some money into it. You can also find a trustworthy financial advisor, maybe a CFP, a certified financial planner, who is certified in financial planning. Ask them questions. Don't be afraid. No question is a dumb question. Know what your options are. Know what their philosophy is. Know why they're investing you the way that they are. Don't be afraid to ask. If you get responses like, oh, you don't need to know or whatever, I don't like that. You're allowed to ask. You're allowed to be an informed investor. So there you go. I can also come to me. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and to all the panelists. Now the most important part is the Q&A. I just asked two things from everybody. We'll hopefully get to every question that people have this evening, but two things. Number one is, if you don't mind standing, so that way you can project, everybody else can hear you, because everybody's questions are probably relevant to one another. And number two is, if you don't mind, and even for more than one of the panelists, directing the question to a particular panelist, and that way, or more than one, but at least when you start off, say who it's for. That way they can have an idea about who and how it should be answered. So let's open the floor, and any questions? Please.
Okay,
if you don't mind standing, sorry.
okay, the financial advisor just spoke. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Sarah.
Sarah. Okay, so two things. First of all, really two questions. So first of all, the CFP, do you recommend going after someone that is fee-based, like commission-based, or flat rate-based? And why?
I think it depends on the person. I'm a little bit hesitant to steer you one way or the other. I'm a little bit hesitant to steer you one way or the other. So that's why I would say is it depends on the advisor and if you trust them, and then you go from there.
Yeah, the second thing is you mentioned something before about someone that tells you they can make 10 times your money, that they should run for the hills. I'm sure you've heard of real estate.
Yeah, I have.
So there are secure real estate funds out there that do pretty well and have nice track records.
I think in general terms, and I've heard this, I'm sorry, I was referring to like the business deals in which, it's not necessarily real estate based, but 10 times your money in 6 months or whatever it was. I was just giving an example of just something that's like, ooh, too good to be true. I think I'm referring to that as that you have to be very skeptical of. I heard of a recent story that it was a company was going public, and so a guy was running around one of the front communities. I think he was even making it up, and he was saying, tomorrow it's going public, you have to invest today. And so this person that was telling me the story, I said, so what happened? He said, I'll tell you tomorrow. Like, nothing, the guy was making up, whatever. There's a lot of too good to be true, that's what my point was.
I have a question for Alex. So your model of proving your worth for your company through savings, time, money, and effort, do you suggest the same model to work in a nonprofit environment, or are there other factors that mix into that also?
Generally, nonprofits tend to pay 20 to 30% less than the market for the same role. They attract altruists, people who really want to be there. They stay long term. Normally, the employees stay longer term. Saving time, money, and effort. It depends on how the money comes in. Sometimes there's a lot of grants, and you'll see this is some nonprofits. We have to spend all the money, But saving time and effort still achieving more in the year. Let's see why it would be different. Do you have something in mind?
Just in case the way that they evaluate their employees is more about the merit they bring to the cause rather than the profit they bring in, that's where the question's coming from.
Gotcha. Every employee should have a job description, and every one of you who don't have one should ask for one. And within that, it will outline what you're responsible for, what you're accountable for, when you need to be consulted, and when you need to be informed. And that is how you'll be evaluated based on your job. And you can always add responsibilities to that. But that should be it. No one should evaluate you based on how your supervisor did or other people below you. That's
Please.
Sarah. Two questions. One, are there any scenarios in which you think that a whole life insurance is proper? And number two, what are your thoughts on long-term care insurance?
Okay, whole life insurance, I don't sell it because it's expensive. Are there any scenarios? There probably are, but it would have to be very specific, and also depends on the actual whole life product. Because I don't sell it, I don't know what the pricing is today. They've changed the pricing in order to make it more in demand. Long-term care policies, they used to be amazing. Nowadays they've cut back, and I think even nowadays they're tying them to life insurance policies. So again, it depends on the product, and you have to very much understand, speaking to an attorney, she does a lot of Wilson Trust, and she was telling me in terms of long-term care, you have to know all the details of the policy. You have to, might help to have someone look at it and analyze all the details of that long-term care policy. I'm not sure if I answered your question. Okay.
Question for Igor. You were talking about credit, about building, that if you spend more than 20% of your credit card, you can actually incur negative credit. So my question is, how do you know to build, how do you build good credit by spending?
That's a great question, especially for your age group. Definitely hard to answer in 30 seconds. I'll give you main items.
Give you 45 seconds.
45 seconds, thank you. Everybody in the United States is entitled to one free credit report annually from the 3 major credit bureaus. So anybody can go, there's a number of websites, you can just Google free credit report. They'll take you to a number of authoritative pages. They'll ask you some security questions, you could pull your report. So that would be step one, where you could look at the report and see, has anything been reported, has anybody stole your identity? You might find items on it you didn't realize they were there, and you may have to challenge those items. Two biggest items on the score, greater about 65% of the overall score. 35% is paying on time in full. So every month, if you incur whatever the amount is, if you pay it in full, that's a positive hit to the score. And the second one is the 20% ratio. So as long as you know what your credit limit is and you are not going above 20%, that in itself will also be providing positive. Other items are less in our control or in your age group, because the longer you have an open account, that also receives certain positive marks. But 65% is from those two items. Of those two are doing well, generally people will stay above 700, which is what qualifies as what we call prime rate. So if, let's say, you're buying a house, if your score is above 700, then you will get the lowest rate available in the market when you want to buy a house. Or if you're leasing a car or you're financing, you'll get the best rate as long as you're above that number. So if you're paying on time and you're not incurring above 20-30%, your score will be in a good place.
I'm going to ask a follow-up question on that, because what about for children? Do you recommend opening credit cards for children to build their, older children obviously, to build their credit history? I've heard mixed messages on that, so I wonder what a credit card skeptic would feel.
Well, you already know my answer, probably. I'm not a fan of opening a credit card when you're 18. Having said that, though, that I would just say that kind of as a general disclaimer. Ultimately, as a parent, you have to know your child. If you think by 18 your child is displaying responsible qualities and they tend to be a saver and they're kind of adverse to spending, at a whim, then you can start them off. Technically, they could start at that point. If you think they have no handle on kind of what's what, and they're just about to learn how to fill out a check, it's not time yet to get a credit card. You first get a job, start saving, get a regular bank account, and then at some point, it's the main thing I would say again is it's a very slippery slope. I made this comment towards the end, but again, I can't emphasize it enough. There's a certain distance in people's mind between what they do, their actions, and what they're thinking and feeling regarding money that is in their possession. And unfortunately, that plastic removes, a reality of what do I really have, and do I want to spend X amount at this point? Do I want to save for a later event? Just throw an example. Dave Ramsey has something called the envelope system. He literally tells people who, when he's trying to kind of get them to reverse course and become more healthy about their budgets, he tells them put cash in each category of envelope and walk around with cash. For an average person, it's like, are you kidding me? I have a credit card. But the reality is that if when you walk in the supermarket and you keep opening the envelope and you see it's becoming less and less, it really hits the psyche. Okay, I really need to think twice before I buy that item, or I may have to wait for a sale next week, and that's okay because I have a goal in mind that's bigger than just buying and satisfying, getting immediate gratification of whatever it is. Credit card doesn't stop you. It encourages you to just keep going. Analogous to that, I would say, is like casino. When you walk in, the tables are all the way in the middle. There are no clocks. There are no windows. You have no clue if it's daytime, nighttime. The goal of credit card is to do that to you. Is to remove any sense of, am I running out? I have no idea. I'll just keep swiping because I feel like it. So you kind of have to assess your child. If you think they have the strength, that they're able to build on that strength, then yes. If you don't think so, then I would start with a normal checking account and start with a debit card where you could experience in reality that money is leaving that month, not a grace period, and then 30 days later there's a surprise.
This is again for Igor. How does the opening and or closing of credit cards affect the score?
If I can answer just deliberate closing for a specific reason.
Like if someone opens an account that after a certain amount of time has an annual fee, so they open it to get the bonus and then they close it when the fee comes.
Absolutely, people do it all the time.
Yeah, so how does that affect the person's
It does affect the score. There's a temporary negative effect. It doesn't cause plummeting in scores, but there's definitely, it does receive negative treatment, and the reason is because they don't want you to close the card. They want you to keep using it. So, if you think there was a benefit that outweighed, like you got X amount of miles, points, whatever it is, I know people, again, their budgets are maxed out, and the only way they can go on vacation is because they opened 3 credit cards and got enough miles to fly to Florida. And, however you want to look at that planning, the reality is that there will be some negative effect, and if you know that in 2 years your lease is up and you need to make sure your score is above 700, then I would advise you not to close the account this year. If you don't have any problems like that and your score is high enough and you feel like I can take a hit by 10 points, you can close the account.
Is leaving it open, not using it, a dormant account?
Right. It doesn't really have an effect, just the accrual of if there's annual fees. There's, by the way, tons of credit cards that have no annual fees. Obviously, they're all competing, and American Express is going to give you 6% cash back, and this one gives you 1%. My overall attitude, I know I come from, again, more of, I feel like I'm in the emergency room on a daily basis, so I'll come from a super conservative perspective. I'm not telling you have to adapt this perspective, but just to go in that direction is indication that's like you want to breach the fence that I encourage everyone to put around themselves, that you don't want to even make an opening for a bad habit like that. There's more value to derive from one day sitting with somebody like Sarah and reaping benefits like dividends and that than a $95 charge on a credit card. So I'll close it in a year and I'll fly to Florida. I think that's not the ultimate. That's not the way to reach the big successes.
Please.
Hi, Raya. Can you please talk about
Just
debt
keep it.
settlement and credit repair?
Debt settlement then,
Credit repair?
and credit repair.
Is there something like specific? Because I
Yeah.
could just start talking and it'll be tomorrow. I mean, the general process is that if it's consumer-related debt, if it's not, let's say if you have your own business and you've got a business credit card, that's totally different category. So if you're talking about regular living, if a person can't pay, what winds up happening is people default on their obligations. They stop paying, and the United States has very tough laws protecting debtors. And so credit cards are very much interested in reaching settlements. And so, generally speaking, what I find is that it could be anywhere between 6 months to a year after somebody defaulting, they can negotiate a settlement. Credit cards these days will settle anywhere between 30 to 60% of what the debt is. So if somebody owes $10,000, they can settle for anywhere between $3,000 or $6,000. There will be negative effect on their credit history and their score. It's not as bad as bankruptcy, but generally I tell clients it's like an escalator. At first, you start falling down. As long as there's some sort of credit that is in your life and you're paying it, you will have a healing counter effect. And so usual cycle I see is anywhere between 1.5 years to 2 years. Person will dip under 700 and then bounce back to again, to be eligible for prime rate. And that's why part of the conversation I have with clients is not just legally what will happen, it's planning for it. So again, if you know you're going to need access to credit in a year, you may have to keep making minimum payments, even though if default is coming, in certain ways you're throwing money away because it will go for its settlement.
Let's say default's not coming, so there is no debt settlement?
You cannot settle debt currently if you're not in default. There are no negotiations available to settle if you're current. You're treated as if you're fine. So that's why part of the conversations is, if my train is heading off a cliff, is that in 6 months, 6 years, and planning for that event properly.
Is there ever a time
That's the other.
Is there a time when it makes sense, like an amount, it makes sense to do that, to go into foreclosure?
When you can't pay the minimum.
You can't just come, it's just like I have this mountain, and I keep chipping away every month, but there's this mountain, and God willing, as years go by, I'll be able to, keep doing it. But is that versus, let's say, a debt settlement where you get a chance to start again? Or does it impact your home, you're a homeowner?
I just want to make sure I understand your question. You're comparing if I had to choose
I was told, you should go to debt settlement and take care of it. They didn't mention the word forfeiture. I forget what you just said. You have to go into
Default.
Foreclosure, that's on a house.
Okay.
A default, you mean credit cards.
If you have a home and you have debt, but you're paying, but it's a string.
I just want to answer it from the perspective of working with families and doing budgets, which, of course, at the end of the day, if there is an issue, we do forward to aid. I think what you need to look at is what are your other options and where is this heading. In other words, if it's a short-term situation where you're short on income now because you have 3 children in college and are making 2 weddings, and even though these payments are difficult for you now, in a year from now or 2 years from now, you will be able to pay, more readily or whatever, then in that case, we don't generally, this is not like hey, why would you bother paying it? You incurred it, and you kind of have to pay it, and it's the right thing to do, and it's what we want to counsel people to do. However, there are situations where either you've gotten there already, where you're going to run out of credit, and at that point, because you're not able to meet all of your expenses, and you're going to either run out of credit or run out of money to pay your monthly minimums. In which case, like he says, that train's heading off the cliff. So if the train is heading off the cliff anyway, you're not going to start painting the interior of the train, you're going to stop putting money into the train. And that's where that sort of fine line comes in, and that's something that is determined on a case-by-case basis, but it gives you a little bit of an idea.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Yep.
You already mentioned before, I promised people I wasn't going to ask him anything. But because this is his first symposium, but I just wanted, because I've worked for a number of years in the consumer and business credit building and repair. So you mentioned before about business credit, so people should just be aware that business credit is based on personal social security numbers. So you shut down a corporation, you're illiquid, or you go bankrupt, it still affects your personal credit. So people need to take that into consideration. It's great
Yes, I definitely agree. I actually had a client recently who had about $500,000 American Express, some sort of platinum kind of a credit card. He thought that it was completely separated from him, and he was in electronics business. He constantly had to have a revolving credit, and eventually business suffered. He couldn't pay, and he went on his personal credit report, and they sued him personally, and he was puzzled. And I said, today people don't fill out applications anymore, so they don't have that visual, concrete reality of putting my name and social security. They walk into a bank and they say, would you like to, we're running a promotion. Just tell us your name, and you're like, okay, I'm getting a credit card. And you don't realize, no, it's actually going to affect your life in every way should you have a problem, meaning for your personal life. It won't just be your business, let's say if you're self-employed or your partner in business. So yes, I definitely agree that you have to be very conscientious. And as far as I know today, there are no credit cards anymore that would be purely attached to somebody's business. If they say that, there will be a boilerplate language on the bottom called personal guarantee that you might not be told while you're getting approved sitting at the clerk. So you do have to make sure, will there be personal liability? But from what I know today, there will be.
Just a question for Stacey, actually. I meant to start off with this, actually, and because you talked about the fact that it's a very expensive neighborhood, or New York is a very expensive place to live. This is an expensive neighborhood. At what point does somebody need to think about the lifestyle that they have, or change the lifestyle based on that? Obviously, when as you mentioned before, once you're dipping into credit cards or utilizing credit cards, that might be the time. But when does that start to kick in, that mindset?
It's actually very interesting. When we first started the financial management program and I first started meeting with families, I was all geared up. I was sure I was going to be sitting with people who were going on PaySock programs every year and were decorating their house, and I was going to explain to them, you can't spend on those things and you can't have full-time help or you're not working. And I think I had one client who really was spending in a way that was just, needed to be controlled. And every other family that I've met with, and it's, thank God, a healthy number now over the past 4 or 5 years, has been people who are working, almost always two parents that are working. These are not lifestyle issues. These are people who are working to pay yeshiva tuition, to send kids to camp so that they can go to work, to live in a house in our neighborhood. It's expensive to be a Jew, and it's expensive to be a Jew in New York. You moved, I don't know where you moved from, but it's pretty expensive in a lot of places. But anyway, it's really not a situation where people are being, careless or thoughtless with their funds. It's really people who are doing their best and working hard. And sometimes there are no answers. Sometimes we don't have anything brilliant to offer because they're really doing all of the work that they can do in the way they can. It's not, it's not a simple scenario. But very often when somebody looks at it from the outside, they can make suggestions to them, things that they didn't think of or things that maybe they didn't see from a certain perspective, and that has been helpful over the years with people that we've worked with.
And just to follow up, when should somebody start thinking about tuition assistance? I'm coming from the perspective that most people don't want to ask for it.
Right, so, from a simple perspective, there is a formula that the tuition committees use. We work with, different tuition committees throughout the 5 towns with most of the schools. We've gone on behalf of our clients, we've gone back to clients on behalf of schools, and there is a number that the committees use. It varies slightly, but if you're earning X, you should be able to pay X% of that gross income towards tuition. It doesn't always work. Sometimes people have medical issues or extra insurance or things or debt or other things that are in the mix that may not be typical. But very often that number is a pretty good gauge of where people should be. If your number is over that, then most of the committees in the neighborhood or most of the executive directors will work with you and understand that you're not expected to go into foreclosure because you need to pay tuition. You're not expected to take out credit cards to pay your tuition if you're living a modest lifestyle. And if you are, and you've checked into everything, there sometimes are ways to go back to those people or committees and to, go back. We've gone many times where we've armed our clients with their budgets to go back and say, hi, here's what we're looking at, here's what we're dealing with, please, look based on this, tell me where you want us to get X% or whatever. So I think as long as people are being honest with themselves about what they're spending money on, and are being careful in whatever ways they can, we really live in a very wonderful community, and the assistance tends to be available as long as it's being asked for fairly.
Sure, absolutely.
I'm really getting nervous being a pariah. Well, on the one hand, I totally agree with Stacey in terms of a lot of people, for sure, a majority of people, are just struggling, living with the reality that they're in New York, and we have tuitions.
Okay,
It's fine.
Yeah.
What I find is, and granted, I realize most people that by the time they're coming to me, it's because there is an issue, something is wrong, and they want some kind of input, or they may actually need legal advice or assistance of that kind. But I personally do find that there is a certain pressure, stressors that exist in our communities. Obviously, I'm not I want to be very careful with my words. I'm just phrasing opinions, sitting quietly in my office as I meet with families. And I could tell you what kind of boots on the ground is that there is a certain pressure, and people often do cave into it, and their spending does. Stacey could be able to dissect, every category and will tell you, okay, here you really can't cut. For example, mortgage payment is a fixed payment. There's not room to negotiate that monthly payment. But, there are people that I meet with it when I see the budget, and, if we just broadly call it miscellaneous category, and they tell me that, well, I had to send all my kids to camp, and it had to be a night camp, it couldn't be a day camp, and I also did have to buy a brand new wardrobe as they fly to Israel, and I also had to get this, and now I spent $20,000 in May, and our family income is $8,000 a month. And I really think that if tomorrow everybody, obviously this is a communist dream, if everybody tomorrow stop using their credit cards and stop living, what I call false sense of income, right? I earn $10,000, but I spend $5,000 on credit card. I convince myself that I have $15,000 to spend every month. But if tomorrow everybody shredded their credit cards and lived on their income, then probably many stores would close in the area, or they would drop their prices. And that kind of dynamic, it feeds itself. And I believe that there are many categories on personal budgets that would drastically go down, and I think would create much more breathing room than there is right now. But there is a certain reality. Yeah.
Is that a question for Sarah?
Yeah.
I heard from different people saying about index funds and how they're great, and I just don't know a ton about what they are, or if you agree that they're great, so if you just speak a little bit about it.
Sure. Index funds. It's a way that you can invest in an entire sector of the market, S&P 500. They rate if the market's going well. S&P 500 index fund is going to be going well. Expenses are low. So the benefit of my seat right here is I can't tell you. I don't know your financial situation. That's what I can tell you. I can look at your financial situation and give you some better idea, and we can talk about it. But that's the gist of index funds. Low expenses, index.
What's an ETF? Index fund?
Yeah. Exactly. This is
My question's for Alex. I just wanted to know, as an employee, how should a person engage, whether he should delegate more or try to take on more responsibilities? Because you were saying about try to take on as much as you can, do as much as you can. Maybe it would be better for a company if I just delegate. On the other hand, it looks like you don't want to do as much on your own.
Everybody is paid a certain amount of money, and based on that, you have an hourly rate of what you're worth. So let's say you're at $30 an hour, and you find yourself 5 hours a week doing $12 an hour work, like filling envelopes. That's what you delegate. And then you look for more higher end responsibility, because at the end of the day, when your supervisor sees you filling envelopes, he thinks, well, does he have enough work? I had a COO at a company. He was making, I should tell you, he's making around $185,000 a year, and he was painting one of the walls in the office. And we were all standing there watching him. And everyone was thinking the same thing. Do you not have anything else to be doing right now? So yeah, so look at your workload, break it down, what you spend your weekly, and everybody should have a good idea of how many hours they spend each week on which tasks, and see what are you doing that really is below your pay grade. I normally say if there's stuff that you really, really enjoy, I'll leave it with an employee for 2-3 hours a week. Let's say you really love dealing with a certain customer or really love whatever it is. I'll leave it with you because you really enjoy it and it's part of making sure you're happy. But yeah, this comes down to what would you pay somebody, and that's where you delegate and then look for more responsibilities. Okay?
That? A little louder if you don't mind, sorry.
One person working doesn't have a set budget of incoming monthly every month.
Right, so.
Did everybody hear the question? Sorry, I apologize.
The question was if somebody's not earning a steady income, if the income varies from month to month, either for commission or whatever, however it comes in, or maybe it doesn't come in annually. It is definitely a little bit trickier from a cash flow perspective. But what I like to do when I do a budget is to try and look at it over a 12-month period to make sure that at least we know that the expenses that are being determined that as necessary can be covered. That addresses at least the question of, are these legitimate expenses for me to be having? So for example, let's say you earn, let's say somebody works as a camp director and they earn all of their money in July and August, and their income is $50,000. It's still logical to look at their expenses during the year, and as long as they're under whatever that net income number is, that makes sense. We would then deal with the question of, well, how are you paying your bills in January through June, which is a different question. It's a little bit trickier when the income is not just seasonal, but it's also varying. And at that point, we do look back. The further you can look back, one of the very important things that we encourage are two things when we're doing budgeting. For people who have budgeted all along, they don't need to look back. They've known all along what their expenses were. They just look forward. But for most people who haven't been as diligent, we recommend tracking expenses going forward, either using an app like mint.com or just good old pen and paper, or you can use the sheets that we put in the folder and add extra columns for each month, what I spent this month on groceries, what I spent this month on clothing, etc. And then the other thing that's important is looking back and seeing what you have spent. And the websites now, if you bank online, they really make it so easy. Credit card, evil credit card companies, make it very, the responsible way to use a credit card is if you're just putting your expenses on and you're paying it off in full at the end of the month and you're using it responsibly, and it's just a way to pay the bills. If you're doing that and you go on to the website of the credit card, you can see by sector, by category, how much you spent on clothing, on gas, on all of the things that are broken out there. So looking back becomes a critical tool. How much did I spend over the last 12 months, the last 24, 36? If you have no idea, if you can say, well, I earned last year $36,000, but I have no idea this year if I'm earning 15 or 70, that's just going to be difficult regardless. Nobody can guess that. Usually we would try and say, okay, well, is there a minimum that we've earned, and try and use that number and then save the extras or the saving for any additional income that might come in. So it's definitely a little bit trickier, especially from a cash flow perspective if you're waiting for money to come in, but that's how we would break that down. Try to look at it.
A lot of frequent customers here. So,
it's a really question for anybody, but I guess maybe for Stacey or any advice about the right ways to have a conversation with spouse about budgeting?
My spouse is here.
Smart.
If it's not, he should have the answer. So one thing that I couldn't agree with him more.
It's a great question.
When we first started off, we used to have people call all the time saying, either very sweetly, hi, I don't want to bother my wife with this, or hi, I'm having an issue, but my husband doesn't really need to know about it. And we met separately with a husband or a wife. We have put a full and complete stop to that for years now. It never works. So remind me what the question was exactly.
The right way to have a conversation.
He wants to have a conversation.
So one of the things that I think has been very successful for the program is that we have the ability to be a third party. Very often you'll have a husband and wife come into the office, and just from our the advisor's natural reaction, somebody realizes that that this was not just them that didn't want to do it this way, that the spouse was right, that this is an issue that needs to be focused on, and this is a habit that needs to be changed. And therefore that third party makes it much easier. Between a husband and wife, I could speak to Winter, but in terms of doing it at home, very often having something prepared where it's not just the same old conversation. The bill came again this month, and look, sometimes I'll sit with a couple and say, well, why is that a problem? Is that number, either the number is okay for you to be spending or it isn't. It's more math than it is emotion. So if you can put down a budget and you want to approach a spouse one way or the other way and say, listen, this is what we're earning and this is what our credit card bill was this month. So you can see this is not a tenable situation. We can't continue this way. That may be much more powerful than why did you buy this again? Or something, or in either direction. You're both right.
I'm going to reemphasize something I did say earlier about really defining goals. Couples don't just have financial issues. How do we want to raise our children? What community we want to live in? What kind of stuff we want to give our children? So there are other areas you could borrow from, and I guess ask yourself, well, how are we trying to teach those goals, either to our children or to ourselves that we want to live up to, and try to kind of build from that and replicate the model. But in terms of answering this question kind of in the bubble, I would say it's really a matter of a conversation. It's just sitting down and saying, I'm curious, what goals do you have? And boy, that is literally what I do in the room. It's a privilege as a neutral third party. The guard is down much more than when the spouse asks each other. But it really starts with that question: what goal do you want? Where do you want to see us in 5 years financially? Where do we want to live? What kind of things do we want to do when we have a chance to have a vacation? And then, after you get the answer, ask, okay, how would you like to accomplish that? And then answer the question as well. And kind of go through that back and forth. If it helps to write it down, you could write it down. But it's really having a real conversation. So it's a matter of kind of where the marriage is holding and comfort level people have in discussing. I personally recommend, when I see that the couple is basically a healthy couple, they just need some direction, I recommend things like rewards. We're going to set our goal, and we want to hit these goals at the end of the month. So if you like yogurt and that's the thing you like, we're going to go and get frozen yogurt, and then we're going to go for a walk. And you could feel this month was an accomplished month because we hit a marker that we both had in mind. And if she, let's say, feels this is the thing that gives her sense of accomplishment, clothing, trip, whatever it is, so you both could set in place that when we hit certain markers, this is how we're going to reward ourselves, and then both people could feel that there's a team energy.
Stacy and Sarah, what guidelines would you give, let's say, to young couples in their 20s starting out in terms of percentages to save up for SIMPOs, which Mr. Chef, everybody has, the small ones first and then the bigger ones, and then you have retirement as well. What happens if you didn't do it then and you're well past that and now the big SIMPOs are coming and you still need to worry about retirement, and how do you present the new prioritize?
I'm a little bit different.
So again, it's so hard to answer because every case is so different. There are people who come to me and say, well, we have a bar mitzvah next year, but we have $35,000 of credit card debt and we're barely making ends meet. That's not a great scenario for, we're going to start saving. I mean, one of the rules of thumb in terms of an IRA has always been, especially if it's a young couple, if there are matching funds involved, that's definitely something you're going to want to take advantage of from as early as you can. If you have that money or you're doing the model to begin with, as a couple starting out, to be able to take out that money off the top before is always also great. You can always calculate backwards. You can send me, I'm trying to think, I've been making these spreadsheets since I'm like 12 years old. You can look and you can say, okay, God willing, we're going to, I do this with couples who are either newly engaged or not yet, nor just married. We actually create a budget for 5 years. which is not, it's not based in reality. I mean, we, sometimes when they're having kids, I mean, that's silly, only Hashem knows when they're having kids. But again, it's just some sort of a guideline, and where do you want to be in 5 years? And when that child is going to be having a simcha, do you want to be able to make something huge or something small or just something at all? In which case you work backwards. Well, if we're going to need X $1,000 in the year 2020, which is getting really close actually, in 2030, then how much would we need to put aside starting now? And there you can, get a little schedule on an Excel spreadsheet. You plug in a number and you see, well, if we put aside $100 a month for the next X number of years, we will have Y at the end of those 13 years, and that's great. If you only have a shorter period, you would do the same thing, and then you'll be limited only by, at that point, what expenses you can't get rid of, which is why everybody, again, budget, I may have started off not so clearly by saying, oh, well, you get married and you make a budget before you've agreed to any apartment or anything, which is ideal. But of course, everybody that we're working with, or most of the people we're working with, are way past that milestone. It's still worthwhile to put down that budget and to figure out what would we like to have, what are we able to cut, where could we save. Versus, and again, as your age changes, as your child's need, as your child's ages change and their needs change, you'll see if you're, if you're able to be in a position to save for smachot or for helping children, great. If you're already 55 and you don't have money aside for retirement, you may need to focus on that first and do the other stuff.
Okay, so that concludes the program for this evening. We're almost 9 o'clock, so there are refreshments. If everybody looks to my right and your left, please avail yourself, and as well as the panelists are here, their contact info is available. This entire session will be available on audio and will possibly be sent out, I'm not sure, but we'll figure out. If you go to the Achiezer website, there might be some instructions as to how to get it. Thank you very much for coming. Thank